Good evening. Strategy without tactics is the slowest route to victory. Tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. That's Sun Tzu. We've heard so much noise from China in the past few weeks. Everything possible to threaten, provoke India without success. India has held the line, made a point that we mean business, but no jingoism. Today, China's official state media agency dragged things to a new low. Shameful, disgusting and blatantly racist videos accusing Indians of being sinners. While China was getting lost in its dirty tactics, Indian diplomacy scored two big victories in one day. Japan has endorsed India's position on Doklam. Vietnam, a key East Asian supplier to China, has taken delivery, we are told, of made in India Brahmos cruise missiles. The bottom line is that while China does act like a bully, it's doing that in the South China Sea. It's completed an ethnic overhauling in Tibet. It's trying to bully Bhutan and us. Beijing protects Pakistani terrorists, has fueled the Pakistani nuclear program, and has been covering the back of North Korean potentially nuclear-armed dictator Kim Jong Un. Xi is going through a power struggle within China. He's trying to reform the very rigid PLA. He needs to tom-tom China's power to cover all this. India is taking an increasingly strong position on the South China Sea. We were very publicly managed to snub China's One Belt, One Road project, and this has been the Chinese response. The simple question tonight is, how will China be taught a lesson? Should we boycott Chinese goods as the simplest measure, or should we just do what Deng Xiaoping did in China 40 years ago? Simply wait. With every year that passes, India is getting bigger and stronger. We are growing faster than China. We will soon have a larger population that will be much younger. Time is on our side. It's time China realized that. That's the message. Let's pick up the debate tonight. Here's what's happened.
China came up with a tribe called India's Seven Sins. But NewsX now shows the real seven sins of a petulant Beijing.
No sign of withdrawal at all. When the whole world is trying to wake India up from its impulse, China's realized it's impossible to awaken a guy who's pretending to be asleep.
Sin 1, insinuating that India is sleeping.
Nobody's blaming me because I'm asleep.
Sin 2, mocking and stereotyping turbaned Indians.
Indian border troops carrying weapons and driving bulldozers illegally crossed the delimited boundary into the undisputed Chinese territory. Yes, you heard it right. Driving bulldozers.
Sin 3, ridiculing Indian forces for driving in bulldozers.
This exact convention is under the protection of international law. Didn't your mama tell you never break the law?
Sin 4, schooling India for quote-unquote breaking the law.
He's building a palace in his garden. I mean,
Sin 5, ridiculing our objections to them crossing the line.
Well, this is most outrageous. We thought India would have been wiser after the first stupid excuse, but this time it attempts to justify its incursion in the name of protecting Bhutan.
Sin 6, dismissing our stand and the truth as stupid excuses.
I'm here protecting it.
Is this your home here?
No.
And Sin 7, racially mocking not just Indians but also the Bhutanese. Coming on the back of yet another provocation by China, India couldn't be any less concerned.
I do not want to dignify this video with a comment. I do not want to dignify this video with a comment.
It is condemnable, their attempt to try and make fun of a particular community.
The government must make it very clear that this kind of caricaturization is something which will not easily be taken.
Of a particular community.
The government must make it very clear that this kind of caricaturization is something which will not easily be taken lying down.
Good Chinese citizens or people who are well-wishers of Beijing saying that, there is more to it than what China is telling its citizens officially.
China is trying to use the same strategy of blackmailing, arm twisting, psychic warfare, cyber warfare that they use against the others.
China has been getting increasingly desperate with the use of tactics such as these. India has been slowly gaining respect and brownie points up. It has already pipped China on the global retail index list. It's got the support of Japan on the Doklam standoff, and it's also got Vietnam to buy its Brahmos missiles, Vietnam being a key rival of China. All this leading to us to believe that perhaps India is not dependent on the Chinese economy as it thinks itself to be.
मुझे लगता है चीन का पूरी ताकत से भारतीयों को बहिष्कार करना चाहिए, अपने आप घुटने टेक देगा.
So as India stands firm and dignified garnering support, China makes its desperation clear. Will boycotting its goods now be the final nail in racist China's coffin? Bureau Report, NewsX.
Tonight, Madhav Nalapat, the editorial director of the Sunday Guardian, with me in the studio. Narendra Taneja representing the BJP tonight. Professor Rajveer Sharma joining us in the studio as well, along with Major General K.K. Sinha. Ashish Gupta joining us in just a bit, and Professor Saran Singh joining us via Skype also in just a bit. If I can begin with you, Professor Nalapat, India has been very, very careful, sir. Despite almost everything from threatening war that has been coming from Beijing, there has been no public pronouncement of much merit. There's been behind-the-scenes diplomacy going on. We are holding a line in Doklam. We're not moving from it, but we're being careful. Now, today you're seeing Xinhua, which has released this video. While this video has been coming out, which is literally jingoistic, mockery is being made of Indians in what I'm sure some Chinese would have found funny, not us. Simultaneously, there is news coming in from Japan about supporting India's position on Doklam. That's a quid pro quo in the South China Sea. There is news coming in from the Vietnamese press that says that the first Brahmos missiles could well have arrived in that country, capable of taking out ships, which also affects things like the South China Sea. Is India's careful diplomacy now in this regard paying more dividends?
Well, I'm glad that India is doing what, frankly, the Chinese were doing till recently, which is speak softly but carry a big stick. Now, regarding Vietnam getting the Brahmos missile, this is very good. You know, through the sale of missiles and defense equipment, we can get an extra $10 billion. Through the sale of, for example, nuclear reactors, we could get $10 billion. Through the sale of space technology, we can get $10 billion. That $30 billion that we can get to fund these research projects. I am glad India is finally coming out of the self-imposed limitations that successive governments have imposed on this country and is now finally exerting itself and finally realizing its potential.
Okay, but why is this happening? There are various analyses on what's going on, whether this is an internal China question and this is a distraction that Xi Jinping is building up, whether this is because the Chinese establishment is insulted over OBOR or over the South China Sea or over the Trump visit. Why do you think it's happening?
Well, look, I'd like to say very clearly, the situation is very, very clear. There is the Chinese military and the Pakistan military are today almost one army. And you remember for at least 30 years, the American army, the brain was the Pakistan brain. Today, unfortunately, the Americans have moved away, but today the Chinese army is largely dominated by Pakistan thinking on India. With the result, their reflexes, their responses are scripted for the benefit of Pakistan and not of China.
Okay, so you think this is more of a distraction on the behest of Pakistan. We've seen a lot of reactions, sir, and this is what you're seeing on your screen sparked a lot of outrage in India, General Sinha. The response from the government has been, we won't qualify this with a comment, which is, of course, the diplomatic response. So what should we be looking at the measure? Is this desperation to provoke feeling within India, sir?
Rishabh, you know, when you are saying that response of India is measured, I don't agree on that. You know, India is actually acting it first time very, very maturely. See, India is giving a very, very strong messages, you know, to all over the world. Mind you, you know, what the professor was bringing it out, over and above, you know, China unleashing, you know, a strategy which, China propagated in 2008. China was holding it. China, and this policy has got 3-4 angles to it. It is not three warfare policy. It is not the slimy silencing policy which the West calls it. It is the, policy which China wanted to unleash it when it's got that superpower of an economic superpower. See what the China is doing it. China is trying to exert so that in Asia Pacific and Indo-Pacific area, it wants to become a regional power. It finds that India is only the hitch where it finds some resistance going to come. And India, for the first time, as a very strong and mature nation, India, the way the things are happening, you say, on the rampant from Red Fort rampant, if a prime minister of a country says that we are capable of defending from sea to the land territory,
absolutely right,
and also the cyber,
and
see the cyber warfare and space warfare, it is a big statement.
And the reality is where I began, that time is on our side. It's a similar strategy that the Chinese employed in the 70s. Just keep waiting, because every year that passes you become stronger, and then you'll be in a better position to take on both friends and rivals. Narendra Taneja, there is a maturity of response which a country, of course, which is showing that maturity should take credit for it, which is India. But there is also a reality of what we can actually do. Now, there has been a conversation going on in this country that there is a role that the government must play. There are Chinese telecom companies operating here, which we're being told that the government is now asking them to share security details. We run a $60 billion trade deficit with China. Do we do something, or do we just wait?
No, we are doing what we need to do. I mean, on diplomatic side, on economic side, on the military side, and also, further strengthening our bridges with our friends such as Japan and Australia, Vietnam, and a few other countries in the region. So you don't necessarily need to go on the rooftop and start shouting about what you are doing. I mean, I personally find the China's kind of, behavior a little bit immature, a bit kiddish even, and it's a bit surprising. I mean, we know that they launched a psychological war against us. They're trying to use whatever options they have access to in India. But probably they know it by now that it's not really going to work, or it's not working.
Okay.
But while at the same time we are responding the way a country of 6,000-year-old history, a country which is respected the world over for its diplomacy, should be responding. And I can share one thing with you: the people in the Foreign Office of China, people at the headquarters of the Communist Party of China, they know our response, and they actually don't know how to deal with it.
Stand up
because
to a
our
bully.
Response is so mature.
Simple psychology,
so
we are told.
They don't know how
always
to deal
stand up to a bully. But let me quickly rope in Professor Rajvi Sharma. Sir, Rajvi Sharma, for people watching this, who are perturbed, perhaps frustrated, irritated, some even angered with what is going on, they're not getting the jingoistic response that many in this country expect from the government. Are there options? Is the time come to clinically review our economic engagement with China? Can it also be done?
No, I think I am perfectly in agreement with you. Firstly, only thing I would like to have some kind of a punctuation is that India is not only responding with firm kind of a determination to whatever is being done by China. The only difference is that India is not acting and responding in a hawkish way like China is doing. And India is also not expressing some kind of an arrogance of power. We are a strong nation, we are a prepared nation, but we don't have any kind of arrogance to answer to what is being done by China. And at the same time, China is now finding slowly isolated on the issue of expansion, and also kind of the racist remarks which it is making. Psychological warfare has failed, psychological strategy has failed. It first tried to demoralize, it has failed, and now India has in fact prepared an economic policy as well. I think you might have noted that we have prepared some kind of a code on the trade and the business companies, which they will have to share.
Because let's be brutally honest, it can't stop. You can't switch off the role. You have to make your company stronger to compete, and that's going to be the end result of all of this. Professor Swaran Singh, now you understand China deeply as well, sir. We are privileged to have several people on the panel tonight who do. What exactly is going on? Why is this coming, and where is it coming from, sir? All the belligerence that we've seen, which we've largely ignored in this country, including panel tonight who do. What exactly is going on? Why is this coming, and where is it coming from, sir? All the belligerence that we've seen, which we've largely ignored in this country, including in the media and on this channel. Where's it coming from, sir? Professor Saran Singh, can you hear me, sir? Okay, go ahead, sir. We can hear you. Go ahead, please. Okay, unfortunately, we lost our Skype connection with Professor Saran Singh. We've been having a problem earlier also. Yeah, Professor Martin Alapat, if you can just take that question, sir. Where do you think it's coming from? What's internally going on within China that is actually causing this, or what's the mindset behind this sudden belligerence over issues that have been quiet for very long?
Well, I've actually been seeing that the military has been, in a sense, dominating the policy process in several theaters. For example, South China Sea, across the Taiwan Straits, we are across the Himalayas, and the military generally has what you call a hawkish perspective. The military generally looks at things only from a military point of view, which basically means for them the only solution is armed force. Now, quite frankly, that is very un-Chinese. That is completely opposed to the policy of Deng Xiaoping, for example. So I am a little surprised that the leadership of China has allowed the PLA to frankly dominate policy in such a way, because I am sure the Chinese leadership understands how important India is to the future of China, and how important a good relationship with India is to the future of both countries.
But KK Sana, is this a phase? Is this a phase which we wait out and hope maturity returns, and once internal issues, whatever they might be in China, sort themselves out, that this takes care of it? Or is it going to require more proactive efforts? How does the brinkmanship end, sir?
Riso, we must understand, what is happening in China. China is also going through a very, very bad phase. We are not, anyone who reads the China very, very internally, you will find there is some movement of some, current is there of balkanization of China. That is taking place. China is going through the second isolation. First isolation China went through in 60s when it had the Sino-China isolation has taken place. China and USSR isolation. This time the isolation is with the US. The second phase of isolation is going. Everything is not hanky-dory in China. Mind you, it is not coming out in the media because still the world is silent on it. But mind you, slowly and silently the things are moving. Other than Philippines, what happened into the lateral state of around China, more or less everyone is resisting China. And I'm telling you, I give a heads off to the people who are dealing this matter in Delhi today. Is they are doing it very, very strongly. See, there are some self-moratorium we always impose on ourselves.
Yes, true.
Those self-moratorium has to be actually looked into in a different way. See, the use of force, there is no one is going to say that use of force, but standing firm on ground without
Which is what's
blinking.
exactly happening in Doklam and beyond.
Yes.
But again, for people watching this broadcast, Professor Sharma, does it go further? Because we are swamped with Chinese products. We are not the only country in the entire world. That's what Donald Trump is complaining about. In the US, all the raw materials that are being sucked in from Africa and East and Southeast Asia funnel through China and sold back to us. Do we have an option other than to develop our own industry and play the long game?
No, I think two things should be very clear to us. One, that China for the last so many years, to my mind, I may be wrong, is rather engaged in some kind of a new Cold War with India. And China, as rightly said in the beginning, is thinking that India is the rival claimant of being a superpower in the region.
Which it will be within years.
Within years, yes, it would be. It would be. India, in fact, is rather marching ahead of China, even in terms of the GDP growth, and we are even now ahead of China. And at the same time, you rightly said that we will have to compete economically as well. In fact, China is trying to weaken India in this Cold War.
So it's the long game. It's the long game. It's the long game. Don't play into China's hand at this point of time because they want to provoke you into something. The time is on your side. Narendra Taneja wants to come in. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, just quick, two quick points. You see, there are many platforms, G20, BRICS, where India and China are cooperating, collaborating. China holds the presidency to BRICS this year, and the summit is going to take place next month in China. So on all those such platforms, there are many, SCO is another platform. So where the cooperation is taking place, But at the same time, we are focusing more, the government is focusing more on our strengthening our, economy, strengthening our armed forces, our defense manufacturing, capabilities and capacities, and also building deeper bridges with countries such as Japan, Vietnam, and other countries. So we are working on that. Our focus is how can we speedily build India's economy, let's say $12 trillion economy, which we think we'll probably be able to do within the next 20 years, and at the same time modernize our armed forces.
And
I think this is enough. This is also a way to respond not only to China but all to all those people.
So you have to look within. I think the consensus that we are drawing amongst myriad opinion over here is continue to look within. But where does that take us? KK Sinha, when it comes, General, to the reality, Arun Jaitley and other senior leaders in the government have made this point that this is not 1962. India has come a long way. When we say a long way, it is not often that arms are tested. It's about the capacity that those arms represent. Is that sufficient now?
Yeah, you are absolutely right. What is happening as on today, India and that pedestal on which it is standing, whether you call it economically, whether it is militarily.
But if you can get into the specifics, sir.
I'll just tell you, when you compare the China on a statistic point of view, what the, professor was bringing
we are far behind, yes.
Whether we have got $51 billion, defense spending, where is the China vis-a-vis China is $51 billion, when the standing army is 1.2 million and the Chinese 2.3 billion.
Yeah.
See, when you compare it on this ground, you will find that in India is lacking, but it is not. A comprehensive, military power or a national power is not counted on the, on the statistic. It is a tangible and intangible factor both. India today have got an upper edge as far, political and diplomacy reach. The way we have got also a psychological reach of our long, a strong democracy.
Okay, but for viewers, quickly, General, quickly for viewers
I just
watching.
want to bring it out.
No, because
just give me one second, just give me. See, when we come down to the military to military, especially in the area where we have the 4,000 4,000 kilometer of frontage, whether it in eastern or central or western area, we are matching by matching, with China. In certain places, we will have an upper edge, especially after the, in eastern theater, the 3 corps and a strike corps coming up. Only thing the India should not put the moratorium of itself of using of the battle groups, also using your superior air power in comparing with
These
China.
war games play out. The calculations, the planning has to be all done, and we have to do it in advance.
And it is happening.
And of course, infrastructure building has been going on in that particular area because it is vitally crucial to India. But Madhav Nalapat, how seriously should we be looking at the war gaming? Because a lot of talk has been going on in this country that perhaps China could be in for a skirmish or two. Do you believe any of it?
Well, Rishabh, I want to say that so far as the government of India is concerned, by the very careful tone of its responses, it is very clear that it has gone in to protect the integrity of land which it believes and Bhutan believes to belong to Bhutan. India is basically fulfilling a treaty obligation to a small country which frankly by itself is not going to be able to stand up. We are not talking of Chinese diplomacy.
Yes.
We are talking of Chinese troops and soldiers. And again, as I told you, I don't believe the Chinese should have resorted to this kind of activity. They could have resorted to diplomacy and tried to convince the Bhutanese that this territory belongs to China. Instead of which they sent in troops. Now that, frankly, has made this whole situation go a little out of control.
And we presume that's a calculated provocation. It's not happened incidentally that some troops wandered into Bhutan and decided to camp in there. Narendra Taneja wants to come in, and then I quickly want to focus a little bit on China-Pak relationship. Mrs. Taneja.
Yeah, just quick point. You see, I think, it's not only Doklam. China probably has some other game plan. And Chinese play chess, as we all know that. They play chess. At the same time, my sense is there is some tension, big tension going on between PLA, the People's Liberation Army, and the super boss of the Communist Party. So some internal tensions, the manifestation of that is also very visible, not only in terms of relations with India, but also in terms of relations with Vietnam in particular, and South China Sea, and so on and so forth. But you see, India is well equipped, India is well prepared for any eventuality, including protecting the treaty that we have got with the
which is of course with Bhutan. Yes. Okay, quickly, but on the practicality, when we talk about playing chess, General K.K. Sinha, before I get Professor Rajavi Sharma into this, is this happening in the East so that we forget what's happening in the West? Is this happening in the East so that we forget what's happening in the West in this corridor that's supposed to be built right through Pakistan? We keep talking about building a parallel port in Chabahar in Iran. It hasn't happened yet.
Yes, exactly. You know, the China is also rattled the way the India, by compulsion, is opposing the One Belt, One Road, and especially the CPAC thing. So CPAC is
so we are opposing it principally because of CPAC passes through Indian soil.
And not that, you know, the China, why is it doing? China is not trying to do, bring it 18th and 19th century, the gunboat diplomacy, the famous gunboat diplomacy. You want to do it. They are using this and calling it the Silk Route, maritime and the...
Well, they've had a lot of conversations on what to call it also, yes.
You see, but we have to understand the gunboat diplomacy. China is trying to do it in 21st century, which he is going to go flat.
So is this trying to distract us?
Yes,
okay,
yes.
Professor Rajavi Sharma, do you also feel that the real game and the real issue with China remains its support to Pakistan and the defense of terror and the investments it is doing is pretty much signed a check to buy out the country?
I think it is now more than clear that China is using Pakistan as some kind of a proxy in many ways.
Well established.
In many ways. For example, if you look at the terror support to Pakistan, it is basically aiming at weakening India.
Yeah, and nothing but.
And nothing against Pakistan. And secondly, if you look at the other, the kind of stand taken by China on Mazur.
Yes. Repeatedly at the UN.
At the UN. And at the same time, if you look at the China-Pakistan economic corridor, I mean, this is insensitivity.
No, but we keep looking for answers. We keep looking for answers. No, but we keep looking for answers. We don't find them. Madhav Nalapat, Nitin Gadkari was in Iran just a few days ago, renewing a proposal to build the Chabahar port, another $500 million which we were supposed to be spending there. That hasn't happened. We built a road in Afghanistan that was supposed to feed into our own corridor. These things just haven't happened. Is it because we lack the will or the cash?
Well, I'd like to say that in my view, they are going to happen. And it's good that the Modi government has maintained India's friendship with Iran, has not been deflected by the United States trying to get us to sign on into what I believe is a very counterproductive kind of a war against Iran. So we have kept to our foreign policy very clearly. Although definitely we and the United States are coming closer in defense. At the same time, India has opened its door to commerce from China. But I would like to say very clearly, if the Chinese opt for war, it is my estimate that their companies in India are immediately going to feel the heat of that war as much as anybody else does.
But is it a value? Is it of value, $60 billion of trade to them? Do they care about it?
Look, it's not just the question of $51 billion profit that they're getting now.
Yes.
It's a question of the $300 billion of potential India-China trade.
Simple,
in telecom,
simple
in
as
infrastructure,
it's your future.
In energy.
Because the youth are here, the
we are
markets
the largest market for them.
The future market, just in the past 24 hours, India has become one of the most value retail economies in the world, overtaking China. Narendra Teja wants to come in, sir, quickly.
Just quick points on Chabahar and all that. India has offered to invest $12 billion just in the gas sector in Iran. We have already committed, actually delay is not from our side, delay is from the Iranian side. But these projects are complex, large, they take time. Gwadar project in Pakistan has been in the making last 14 years. It's not that it happened in just last one year.
And it's not happen tomorrow.
So these projects are large projects.
But the reality is, one thing that we should learn from the Chinese is how to play, as I run out of time, is how to play the long game. Deng Xiaoping has come up several times in this conversation. He came up in my opening comments. The long game, the time is on our side. Number two is, when it comes to large-scale projects, deliver them.
But we are, but look, but we are playing the game better than China.
Okay, but we are playing the game better. Of course, you represent the government, you represent all Indians here, sir, so we are convinced by what you say. But the reality is, when it comes to large-scale projects, the Chinese have shown the way. They build the Three Gorges Dam. It's much more difficult to do in a country that has to parcel its resources in a democratic setup, which we all recognize. The reality is, if you've been following this with concern over the past... Narendra Teja, you don't have to defend your government, sir. I'm not criticizing your government. You don't have to defend them. Yes, okay, you don't have to defend them, sir. The reality is, as I wind up this conversation, that if you've been watching this with concern over the past few weeks, there is a lot that India is doing. The maturity is paying off as it will. Time is on our side, not on China's. With that, we wrap up this conversation. On the other side, we pick up all the latest political developments happening in Chennai. Stay with us.